have to role model some of these things. But, this is where experience counts, and people like us will feel a little better about ourselves. Because they're anyway 7 on 10, right? So we've got to feel that there was another 3 we could have added. But life is really a learning experience. And, when I was really young, and, young can be defined in many ways in nowadays, but when I was about, I think, exactly 21 years ago is when I did really well at Star, and at about 24 I was running Star Plus in India, and I thought it was all going very wrong for me. You may believe it was going right, but you give somebody that young so much of power, adulation, success, it's bound to go wrong for you at some level, right? And so at about 27, I quit Star Plus to move to Sony, and at that point, a friend of mine, his mother, she's a practitioner for many years, called Yashodhara Oberoi. I was just like having coffee with her one day, and I was in my gardening notice period, and she said, "What are you going to do for these 3 months?" So I said, I just came back from Singapore, I'm going to go to London, then I'm going here, then I'm going there. You're also rich at that time, right? Rich than most other people will not be. And you've done 3 years of like nearly a CXO role at 24, so you have a lot of money in your pocket. What do? You have 3 months in hand, so you say, I'm going to go see the world, right? So she says, all that is very good, but what are you going to do to prepare yourself for the next inning of your life? So I said, I've done very good work over the last 3 years, so that's why they've hired me. I'm well prepared to do the next job, and they're not doing very well themselves, so they need somebody like me to come in and help them. So she said, but you still need to prepare yourself. So she dug me a little more deeper, and I got the point that she was saying, are you mentally prepared to make the big change, and are you going to have mental growth as well as skill growth, and both of them need to go hand in hand. And I didn't really, go very deep in that conversation because she's much senior to me. I just accepted what she was saying. And sometimes you need to do that at face value rather than, argue it out too deeply. And she said, why don't you go and do this Vipassana course? And not at all. So good to see you. And she said, why don't you go do a Vipassana course? At that time, we didn't really have any online booking. You had to call the course and book and so on and so forth. So she said, there's a course starting on this date in this location. Why don't you just go? And go and wait and take my name. Maybe you'll be able to figure a course out. So I reached Igatpuri, where the main center is. And there was a course starting, and they said the course is full. So I said, listen, I'm a famous person. Can you just give me? But they said, there's nobody famous here. So sit down. And they were like quite crude about it. They said, वहाँ पे बैठ जाइए और हम आपको शाम को बताएंगे कि हम आपको ले सकते हैं. अभी सुबह के 11 बजे हैं. तो ऐसे मैं शाम तक वहीं बैठा रहूँ. He said, हाँ. So I sat down. I said, it's quite a humbling experience. So I sat down. It was a shed. And I kept waiting, and I went back to him. Sir, कुछ हुआ? So he's saying, sir, यहाँ पे ना 5 बजे कोर्स का ख़त्म होगा एंट्री. उसके बाद अगर कोई सीट मिलेगी तो हम आपको बताएंगे. तब तक आप बैठे रहिए. So, and I'd been just featured, like about a couple of months before that, on the Sunday review of the Times of India about my haircut. So, you're coming from that kind of a background, and now somebody saying, वहीं पे बैठिए. So I sat. Then they said, कुछ lunch आएगा, आप देख लीजिएगा, कुछ खा लीजिएगा, because they felt bad for me. So there was some lunch that got served, very plain lunch. So at first I thought, okay. Then I said, okay, let's eat whatever you're getting. But I was also hungry by that time. So I had lunch, and then luckily, patience and perseverance, the first lesson started to set in. And at 5 o'clock they said कि शायद एक रूम हुआ, तो आप और 1 घंटा वेट कीजिए, फिर बताते. So at 6 I went back to him. I said, sir, क्या हुआ? So he's saying, अभी और 1 घंटा वेट कीजिए. So at 7 finally he told me कि आधे घंटे में शायद आपको बताता हूँ मैं. So at 7:30 he said, okay, there is a room and you can take, you can take this key, and ये झाड़ू भी ले लीजिए, साफ कर लीजिएगा. So so I looked at him. He said, हाँ और 10 दिन खुद ही झाड़ू मारना है. So I said, अच्छा. और आप बाकी सब लेकर आए हैं? तो I said, बाकी सब मतलब he said, you've got to get your bedding and you've got to get a. I said, हाँ वो सब है because they told me to take a bedding. He said, घड़ी लेकर आए हैं? So I said, घड़ी. He said, alarm clock. यहाँ पे सुबह 4:30 बजे उठना होता है. तो I said, नहीं. He saying, अच्छा फिर ये जगह है जाके खरीद लीजिए क्योंकि उसके बिना तो आप यहाँ पे नहीं रह सकते. So anyway, I went and bought a clock, and he didn't tell me that I should also buy a mosquito repellent. And it was this time of the year exactly. But the mosquitoes had already made their entry into the place. Whatever I opened the door, it was like, eventually you like the room, but really it's just a room, and they have a concrete bed over which they have a mattress. And they have a pillow, that's all, right? And then you can figure it out from there. But I had the most, cathartic and life-changing experience. The 10 days are immense. I mean, you don't need even the room eventually that you realize, because the process of introspection and evolution is very, very deep. It's like what Mr. Goenka, who's the main teacher of Vipassana, who's not alive anymore. He was a Bharat Ratna, and he talks about it as the deepest mental surgery that you can do to yourself, and you're the surgeon, and it's your own mind. And so that was then, and it's been about 18 years from there, or 17 years from there on, where I've been practicing almost every single day, every morning. And I almost have a class in my house. Other people also come, and we've been practicing together. And I keep going back for courses, and so it's just the life, form of life now, and it tends to keep you very grounded. You understand that everything is transient. Every haircut in Paris, and every sitting down in the corner and waiting for a room eventually is transient. You'll get something somewhere. And I think the last 2 years, when the COVID period started, we created an online community that we used to meditate on Zoom together. Many friends who were been meditators in the past but had left the practice, we all came together because we realized that everybody was going through enough, trauma of not having, not being able to do what they want to. People were stuck in different parts of the country. Friend was stuck, in Pune, couldn't come back to his family. Another was stuck in some other part of the world and couldn't see his family. And most people are going through it even today. Yesterday I was having a conversation with a friend who hasn't seen his family for 2 years now. He lives in Dubai. His family's in Singapore. Singapore is not allowing travel from one city to another. And it's just, and he's now reached India to be able to make it to Singapore. But the Singapore government wants him to have COVID, and they don't recognize the Dubai app. And now he's already been vaccinated 4 times in Dubai, and he will have to possibly get vaccinated twice more in India to be able to make it to Singapore. And that is life, right? And so the more you can adjust to the reality as it exists, the more you understand the laws of the universe, and the more you get in tune with, that your vortex is in tune with the universe around you, the easier life becomes. Yeah. And one of the things that Vipassana taught me is that life doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be very easy, but whether it's going to be a struggle or it's going to be easy is going to be determined by your attitude to life, right? If you see struggle in everybody, and if you see everybody with your tinted glasses, then you're going to not be able to build any purpose in your life, or you're not going to be able to collaborate with the other person. Yeah. So, I mean, if you take life easily and you treat people at face value, there will be the 5-10% of people who, a lot of people tell me people will cheat you. I said, it doesn't matter, it's their karma. But largely, if you figure out people in a very easy and more open and transparent manner, good people come around you. I mean, I've come around Dr. Shani for now 30 years of my life. So, you always you have the opportunity of getting around good people, right? And if you stay in touch with good people stay in touch with you. So, yeah. So that's
amazing. Thank you so much. I just have another impromptu question. It's like, we're talking about tech here, right? It's a skill tech university, future tech jobs is what we're looking at. And Siddharth today made a presentation where he's talking about combination of finance and tech, so fintech, media tech, and so on. Mental health and tech?
Oh yeah, I think, and there's a lot being done around mental health and tech. I think a lot of people have made very good psychometric models to be able to understand mental health and where it's going and how you can help people identify their issues through technology very early on. There are very good data sets that are generated and getting created around understanding what people's mental health issues are, and this is something that is soft, but it's also more and more documentation and data will be able to get early signs of depression. I can tell you something that we are doing around the mental health space, and actually I was egging Dr. Shani to come on to the advisory board primarily because that is what we're building tech around responsible social media. One of the things that we want to do is that we've realized that social media algorithms actually very detrimentally contribute to mental health. And we've seen a lot of the work that is coming out around, Meta and Facebook and Instagram is largely about having people losing their self-worth and self-identity on some of these social platforms because everybody who's got to be beautiful to be able to survive in this world, right? And not everybody is like that, right? You should be able to have your own self-identity and self-worth without having to be looking like the way you're looking. And so how can algorithms really understand some of these issues, understand early signs of depression? If you go out and look for content that is cynical, depressive in nature, the problem is that today the recommendation engines will give you more of that and can possibly get you into a very poor rabbit hole. And so this whole rabbit hole effect needs to be dealt with very early on. And technology should understand, and AI should understand more about people's mental health before they start getting into deep recommendation. So there is a really, I'll send you a link, but there is a really nice lecture, and I'm giving myself credit, but sorry for that. But a really nice lecture on responsible social media that I gave at the IMAI last week itself on how AI needs to balance between mental health and growth goals and engagement goals that platforms have. And so that's the fine balance that, yes, I want to increase session time, I want to increase my advertising, but I also need to balance what I'm doing to that individual in the process, right? There should be a nighttime shutdown at some point in time. Should you have different kind of recommendations? The amount of trolling that is happening on platforms is also a result of recommendations. So if you, suppose, were to troll me, then you will get more content like that where you can troll more. Unfortunately, that's how the algorithm works. BBC has really documented an entire study around what is happening with, gender bias trolling on social media and how the algorithm actually makes trolling even worse. And trolling has a very detrimental impact on both people. The party who's trolling is also going through enough of a mess in their own head, and that's why you have to be at a very extreme edge to be able to put out extreme emotions in public in your own name, right? Or in anonymity. And obviously it has a very detrimental impact on the person who's getting trolled. So while there are great advantages of the internet and technology, there is also a certain amount of boundaries that we need to create around AI so that it can, create a positive virtual world. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
It's strange that you talk about the nighttime. You talk about the nighttime. Falguni Nair, when I met her, she said the maximum sales on Nykaa happen between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m.
And that's the whole problem, right? But
yeah.
And we would like to believe that it's good for our business and our growth goals, but what is it doing to the community? Right? And those are the questions we need to start asking ourselves, right? That should you be doing this? Should you be encouraging people to be doing this? Right? And commerce is still okay, but where are people coming to commerce from? They're actually coming to commerce from some social media ad that they're seeing. So actually they're prevalent on some social media which is recommending them to get to commerce at that point in time. You're at your weakest mental point at that point in time. So if you want to gratify yourself with some amount of shopping, you will. Right? You want to give yourself some amount of comfort food or comfort shopping. Right? And that's why it happens. A lot of people are smiling in this room because a lot of people do it. Right? I do it. There was a time that, I was, in the COVID, I was getting really bored. I would order 1 or 2 things out of Amazon every day. It had got into everybody's habit because you weren't going out, you weren't doing anything. This was like an event in your life, ordering something. Everybody had gotten into ordering something, and most people ordered things that they were never going to use. Right? We had ordered extra food, extra, consumer durables, everything extra. And why? Because it was that shopping was directly connected to a sense of insecurity that had got, the sense of fear that had gotten into us. Or it's just a sense of boredom that had gotten into us, yeah.
True, very true. I don't know how to divert this back to technology, but this is amazing. So when we met last over the webinar at you were the CEO of ZO5, and I was very enchanted by the fact that you said there are algorithms that are tracing our viewing activity. Right? And then at that point of time, you had identified a new viewership demographics, which was young single women wanting for content, that kind of content they did like. And then Chudails came out. I'm sorry for that name. It's the name of a series. It's a very popular Pakistani series, Chudails. And it's brilliant. And I don't know where it's coming from. It's a special demographic that it's catering to, and it works. And then I saw your progression on LinkedIn. So you moved on to create Serendipity Media Tech, and which really baffles me is like, because you're talking about AI that informs writers and producers to get connected with geographically segmented audience. How are you doing that? And what is it all about?
So, what happened to me was that in 2017, I, much like what Dr. Shani is doing for the world around here, I decided to upskill myself. 2016, I got into my ZEE5 role, and then I realized that while I had a ton of experience in creating content and media, but I needed to upskill myself where digital and technology was concerned. And I, you do this most times, everybody does it, but I did it worse maybe. The 2018, I applied to Columbia. They took me in. I didn't take it. 2019, I decided I was going to do something, and I applied to another university, and I didn't take it. By 2020, I said, if I don't do it now, it'll be too late. So I applied to Kellogg's, and I got admitted into the digital transformation program. It's a 2-year program, and it's 2 semesters on campus and 2 semesters off campus. I didn't do. So everybody said, "Why are you doing this? Do an executive MBA. It's quick in and out. Go to Howard, and it'll be nice. You'll also get a good peer group and so on and so forth." I said, "I'm not looking for a peer group, nor am I looking for an in and out. I'm looking for deep knowledge because the business I'm in requires me to upskill myself to stuff like this." And the month that I was supposed to be on campus was March 2020, right? Which is where everything shut down, but luckily Kellogg's decided to move the program immediately online, and so right up to the end of this year, we had lectures from 6:30 to 9:30 every day, which is like 9 a.m. Kellogg's time, which is Chicago time. And it was quite a commitment, but I majored in AI/ML. And so because I majored in AI/ML, one of the things I wanted to do was, as a part of my project at college, was to be able to create a tool, AI/ML deployment tool in the area of work that I've been in for many years, which was writing. Right, which was creative content creation, and specifically we built one for writing. And so it was actually not a company, it was something that I was doing to pass out of school, but the tool turned out so good that I decided to launch a company with that. So that's how it really happened. And what the tool really does is that it allows writers to be able to get inspired by true life, and which is why I asked Shivani on how she got inspired by the story. And what it does is that, suppose if you want to make a film on mental health based in Mumbai around Gen Z, any amount of filters, and you want to talk about very relevant stories, or you want to talk about stories that have never been told, so on and so forth. You go on and give the storyboard all the filters that you want, and it will throw up real life stories to you from across the web and across the world for you to get inspired on, right? And you can use those stories in a scrapbook to be able to build characters, to be able to build storylines, to be able to build, through the line work from it. Once you write that story, it then gives it a relevancy score, a uniqueness score, and many other scores that have been built through AI, and also has a workflow that validates that story through professional critics, through the community, and through the bot itself. What we're really building is an IMDb equivalent to. So IMDb is post-release. Once your film is released, and you get an IMDb score. But this is a script score before you even go into filming, so that you can decide whether the script is worth investing your money behind.
Wow.
So it's a pre-production score, which will allow OTT platforms and producers to be able to decide whether it's worth investing their money behind a project.
Right. I mean, it will make writing so hassle-free, because right now it's a gamble, right? You write a script and then you're running after producers.
That's true.
And you really have no idea which producer would want
In
to
fact,
invest in.
the tool should be in its beta testing next month.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm happy I can actually give you the tool. You can actually use it for your students very early on. Now that we're having this conversation, why not?
You would love to.
I mean, it'll be a good give back. So we can do a limited release for some of your students. They can use it in script writing and so on and so forth.
In fact, there are 4 web series in the writing process right
Nice.
now, and each of these need to be
And
tested.
so what happens is, once you write and all of that on the tool, it lands on a marketplace.
Okay.
The marketplace is already getting signed on by all the OTT players and the producers. So the kids get exposure to the OTT platforms and the film producers on their own on the marketplace. You don't have to go hawking the script to many people. And it also has a score on top of it. So if it's a great score, then you know it's a great script. And so selling the script becomes that much more easier.
So industry validation right in the classroom.
Right.
That's
And it's all end to end. Yeah, you have a question. Go on.
Sorry.
So so copyright's built into the platform. So minute you say, okay, I want to copyright it, we've already got Anand, and Anand, the big copyright lawyer, they copyright in 24 hours the entire script for you. Yeah.
So what we do right now is we insist that our students register with SWA, Screenwriters Association.
Yeah, that's also good. And we've taken it a step ahead to the copyright board itself.
Oh, lovely.
Right? Because SWA, I mean, I've worked with SWA, and for all respect to them, there's very little they end up doing for you if you go and eventually if you get shafted.
Right.
So.
And then you have a second platform that you're creating right now, which is...
So this platform, actually, to be honest, I've created, and we are now integrating it into another writing platform, because it was not really something that I was going to do full time, but because I was doing this as my Kellogg's project, I don't want to throw it away. I said, "Itna अच्छा काम किया, इसको कहीं पे लगा देते हैं." तो, and it became a full business on its own. And I got like a 16-year-old kid. I shouldn't call him a kid, but who's now 18. I was mentoring his company for the last 2 years. He's President of India awardee in AI ML, and he wrote the entire code for it. And he has a tech company of his own, which is funded by Sequoia. At 18. So yeah, so being young is actually better. And he's very bright, so he wrote the entire model with me.
Amazing. I actually have a line here in your description which says entrepreneur within the job, but I think you were also an entrepreneur within the classroom. You started this project.
That's true.
So I was coming to their second project, which is eWorld.
Correct.
Where you're saying that this is a platform that caters to women. And I don't know
Correct.
in what way. Are women consumers?
So
Or women
it's a
creators?
content community commerce platform for women.
Yes.
With all what we were saying, which is happening to women, on the internet. And really, when we went to college, we were in a safe zone. But take this in the 90s and early 2000s, and especially not in Bombay, but in the north, eve teasing and safety for women was, and it still is, but it was a big issue even in urban India, right? Some of that got solved over a period of time. I think laws became better, harassment laws became better, both at workplace and women abuse laws became better, tightened, and I think the judiciary made examples of some of the cases, and which is good. But then came the internet. And in the name of anonymity, everything that was happening on the street has now moved onto the internet, right? And you never know who that person is. I mean, it happened to me 4 days ago. I booked for a trip to go at the year end, and then the COVID guidelines changed, and I had to cancel the tickets and so on. So I put out a tweet to Make My Trip saying, hey, can you help me with my refund? And somebody picked up my ID from there and called me and told me, okay, we are calling for Make My Trip. We want to give you a refund. So I said, yeah, sure. So he said, can you download TeamViewer on your app, on your phone? So I said, why do you need TeamViewer? Now I know what TeamViewer is, right? Because the minute I put TeamViewer, he's going to be able to get access to my phone. And then he asked me to download another app called Slice and then log into that with your Aadhaar. And basically, he was going to make me, do things that I was not supposed to do. Now, this level of fraud that is going on the internet is reached, to a pinnacle, right? Cybersecurity and cyber fraud. But leave just even, the financial fraud, the emotional fraud that's going on with people under enough pseudonyms or under enough handles trying to really, almost mentally harass women. And everybody, but especially women, is acute. And that's why we realize we can't change the world. We can't do everything for the world, but what we can do is we can try creating a free space for women where they can create content, where they can create communities, and where they can monetize themselves and also have financial independence. So it's an entire platform that's built on the new creator economy principles, which allows women creators to be able to do through the line monetization, whether it is service economy, which is to be able to do consults, paid communities, paid features around courses and so on and so forth, and also be able to create brand stores, to be able to create D2C brands and so on and so forth. So it's a fully empowered, enabling world where you build your own communities, you build your own commerce, and you create your own content. And we're really largely going to be able to give you a free space which is moderated, which has a high TAT, which makes sure that only women enter the platform, and which also really allows you to be able to do what you want to in terms of financial independence.
Great. And yesterday I had the opportunity to actually see how much of a digital tech evangelist you've become. I was on the webinar that you were talking about cognitive psychology for UI UX. I had absolutely no idea that you'd be teaching UI UX, but he's actually offering a course in Jan through a platform, online platform on UI UX specifically. What are your thoughts on teaching at Atlas Skill Tech University?
Listen, I'll be happy to come and do whatever Dr. Shani wants me to do. That's okay. But yeah, I think psychology and UI UX are very, very connected. And what the platform does, Elieves, which I would urge all of you guys to do, is that it picks from real life problems that businesses are facing and then creates courses around that. So the germ of the course is not academic excellence, but it's real life business problems that need to be solved, and so they build frameworks around those problems. So I was talking about the Psych framework yesterday, which is a very new cutting edge framework that's come into play, which allows you to test your UI UX. And it has psych elements, psych units, and so as you go on to build a website or a landing page or an application, every unit on the platform connects you back to user psychology, and then you score it for your psych, whether positive psych or negative psych vis-a-vis the user's reaction, what you anticipate your user's reaction to be. Does it create trust or does it create cognitive load? And then you optimize that psych load on an ongoing basis to be able to build more and more user traction.
Great. Thank you so much. I have one question from Ameya. He's a colleague from...
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for throwing light on the meditation journey. I think it's fabulous. I think it has superior scientific value, but hasn't been able to garner good branding of sorts. So thank you very much for sharing that.
I'll give you one answer on that branding piece. So they called me to be a part of the Vipassana marketing PR committee about 15 years ago. And so, we being marketing people, and most people in this room will come back and make a really good plan and say, okay, let's do this, let's do that, and so on and so forth. So when they saw the plan, they said, हमको इसमें से कुछ नहीं करना. So I said, so फिर आपने एक कमेटी क्यों बनाई है? He's saying, हमें लगा कि हमें कुछ करना चाहिए, लेकिन हमें इसमें से कुछ नहीं करना है. आप लोग जो करते हैं, वो कहीं में आपको कोई पूछे तो ज़रूर बताइए, मुझे बस उतना ही करना है हमें. So I said, ऐसे क्यों? He's saying, क्योंकि अभी हमारे कुछ whatever number of centers हैं और किसी सेंटर में किसी कोर्स में कभी भी सीट नहीं होती. And so the best marketing is really the word of mouth that flows out of people who do a course. It is almost impossible to get a seat in a course before 2 months. There's an 8-week period, waiting period in any course, in any center, even today.
Great.
I mean, I was just making a point of marketing, and that's when I realized that, we so overrate traditional marketing all the time, yeah.
Absolutely. So I had 2 questions. One was to do with the metaverse. What is your view on that? And second was technologies will keep coming and going, and you have seen so many ups and downs with respect to technology of sorts. What are like the core fundamental capabilities which have not changed over years so far, which our students can build in themselves and we as faculty can focus upon?
So let me start with the second question first, and then I think your first question will get answered on its own. I think what I was talking about yesterday on the webinar also is that the fundamental cues that all good practitioners in any area of work, including technology, should be getting is finding new user problems to solve. Right? Technology today is at that stage where you can solve the problem if you know the problem. The problem is the problem itself. Right? I used to go to LA a lot for many years, for the last 20 years. And for the first 10 years, right, I never accepted a dinner invitation unless I had a local along with me. Guess why? There is no formal cab system in LA. You can't get out on the street and hail a cab unlike New York or Bombay. Right? And there are fewer points, and either you have to make a phone call to get a cab, or you have to be in a hotel where there are cabs available outside. Otherwise, if you go to somebody's house in a location somewhere, it's almost impossible to find your way back unless that person is driving you back. It was a problem that was staring at us for so many years, until Uber came in and solved it. And once Uber came in, I started to see LA after 10 years of traveling to LA at least twice a year every year. I've seen more LA now in the last 5 years than I saw in the first 15, only because it empowered us to go anywhere, anytime, anyhow. You don't need to worry about how you're going to get back from any place, right? I met so many old uncles and aunts who had never visited because I said, अरे इनके घर कौन जाएगा, वापस कैसे आएंगे? और वो मेरे को छोड़ नहीं सकते वापस, तो मैं जाऊँगा कैसे? So my mother would say, yaar, my buaji lives here, why don't you go meet her when the next time you go to LA? I would tell my mom, I said, it's not possible because her house is like, an hour away from LA and she's too old to come and drop me back. So I'll get stuck there. She said, you can stay there in a house. I said, no, I'm not planning to stay there. I have a meeting tomorrow morning and I'm going to speak to her on the phone. So people who go to LA and talk to their relatives in LA on phone rather than actually meet them, which is something you could do from Bombay itself, right? But if you have a problem, technology will solve it. And I think that is really the core to what students should be looking for on an ongoing basis. Good students, actually university students, see these problems ahead of people like us because we are bound by the paradigm of what we are already working on, and we think that we will make some incremental and marginal changes over what we are already doing, and that will be it. The problem in both education and in business is that we all keep making marginal changes over what we are doing. We don't make the exponential leaps. You have to be outside the system, unfortunately, to be able to make the exponential leap. I mean, Netflix, and it's a great example, Netflix didn't come out of a movie studio or a broadcast business. You had to be outside the broadcast business to realize that over-the-top television could be good. Right? But all the existing movie studios and broadcasters didn't think of it like that because they always kept making marginal changes. They moved from SD to HD to a box to all of that. But they didn't think that big shift of going into video streaming. And most changes, unfortunately, happen from the outside.
Absolutely. And your take on metaverse?
So my take on metaverse is that it's a great idea. I think where AI and virtual world and the real world will have to meet is being responsible. What the metaverse should not end up doing is making our life more miserable than happy. And I think all the conversation in the afternoon today, which started from mental health, I think the tuning around metaverse has got to be on how do you make this world a better place.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you've summed it up beautifully. I was going to ask you how can Meta World promote sanity, but I think you've said it. Thank you so much. And I think it's been a wonderful conversation. And आपने बहुत दिल से बोला, which I really respect. So call it being genuine or authenticity, but I think speaking from heart to heart is just amazing. So I'm really, really grateful for you to have come here, to have witnessed our students' film. Like you said, the first reaction is always कि यार ये students' film है. And yes, we'll get in touch with you for not only for opportunities for our students, but also for lectures, because I think your UI UX lectures, plus also this whole talk on responsible social media is something that we need to bring in classes today. So thank you so much.
Not at all. It's always good to be around people who are actually shaping minds of the society. And I think all of you guys have more responsibility as much as we do, but you have more responsibility in bringing out a generation that will understand some of these fundamental values more, because they will create great tech, they will create great opportunities to change the world, but they also need to be rooted into some human values. And I think that combination of using technology to create new or solve new problems without creating new ones for them is what we're really looking for, to all of you guys to groom that, that generation coming in. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you.
Have a happy new year. Merry Christmas.